The Global Alliance for Public Relations and Communication Management, GA, is the confederation of the world's major PR and communication management associations and institutions, representing over 360,000 practitioners and academics around the world. This month, GA is celebrating diversity, equality, and inclusion, DEI. In honor of this initiative, we're hosting a series of 3 insightful webinars that aim to foster best practices and innovative strategies within the realms of DEI. Join us in celebrating our diversity.
Hi, I'm Justin Green, and I'd like to welcome each and every one of you right around the world in joining us for Diversity, Equality and Inclusion Month, running throughout the month of June. So wherever you are in the world, please join us online free of charge for the many events that will be taking place during the month of June. So hopefully we'll see you then. Take care.
Regards from North America. My name is Gladys Diaz, and as Global Alliance board member, I would like to invite you to celebrate June, Diversity, Equality and Inclusion Month. Take advantage of the educational content and the webinars that we have to offer. Global Alliance is an inclusive institution and we are here for you.
Hi, my name is Stephen Shepson-Smith and I'm a board director of the Global Alliance. I'm here representing Europe and the Chartered Institute of Public Relations. The CIPR is the only PR membership organisation in the world to hold the national equality standard. So equity, diversity and inclusion are incredibly important to us. That's why I'm really excited about June at the Global Alliance, which is Diversity, Equality and Inclusion Month. We've got some brilliant webinars planned for later in the month, so please check out the Global Alliance website, and I hope to join you on some of those webinars and see you on some of those webinars later in the month. Thanks very much.
I am Wale Adamalekum of Elizabeth University, Nigeria. We at the Global Alliance African Regional Council only support the Diversity, Equality and Inclusion program of the Council. The program aims to actually take public relations out there to the public such that nobody is left behind. And so we believe the aims and the objectives of the various programs of Global Alliance, especially the DEI, is worthy of attention, is worthy of your promotion, and we believe that this program is going to go places and indeed make sure that public relations becomes a household name in terms of its utility, in terms of its purpose, and then of course the objectives for which the various programs that have been outlined will serve to humanity and the generality of our publics. Thank you.
Hi friends and colleagues, Jenny Muir coming to you from Sydney, Australia. I'm a Global Alliance board member for the Asia Pacific region. I'd like to invite you to get involved and register with this month's program of work, which is all free for members. It is focused on diversity, equality and inclusion, really important topics for our profession at the moment. Please take a look at the Global Alliance website and register and get involved. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jude William Enilo, the Pro-Vice Chancellor of the University of Liberal Arts, Bangladesh. I'm a Global Alliance Board of Director representing South Asia and the Middle East, and also an Academic and Research Council member. At Global Alliance, we have designated June as Diversity, Equality, and Inclusion Month. There are very interesting webinars lined up for everyone. First, on digital inclusion on June 20. Second, on best practices in diversity, equality, and inclusion on June 25. And third, on public relations and communication professionals, legislative inclusion on June 27. Please attend these webinars and the other activities of Global Alliance.
All right.
Over to you.
Good morning. Yeah. Good morning. Good morning. I'm seeing that we have been receiving all the registrants coming in at this point. So we are very, very happy to start the conversation. And I myself is very excited to be with the greats in the communications industry today because we are so privileged and so lucky to have all of them in one discussion, sharing with us really, really great thoughts. So I'm really excited about that. So I'd like to greet first. Good morning, good afternoon, evening, everyone, wherever you are in this part of the world. I'd like to greet you that. This month, Global Alliance is celebrating diversity, equality, and inclusion, or DAI. In honor of this initiative, we are hosting a series of 3 insightful webinars that aim to foster best practices and innovative strategies within the realms of DEI. The Global Alliance for Public Relations and Communication Management, or GA, is the confederation of the world's major PR and communication management associations and institutions, representing over 360,000 practitioners and academics around the world. GA brings several benefits to its members, including free training and access webinars such as this one. Thank you for joining us for our second webinar for DEI, focusing on best practices in diversity, equality, and inclusion. Today, I'd like to welcome everyone in the discussion of the best practices in diversity, equality, and inclusion, sponsored by Global Alliance. My name is Anna B. Pista, a Board of Director of Global Alliance, and President and CEO of Ardent, a PR agency in the Philippines. I am honored to be your moderator for today's session. We have an exciting and insightful program lined up just for you, featuring some of the brightest minds in the industry who have undertaken some of the most successful campaigns in the field of diversity and inclusion. Today's webinar is focused on exploring effective strategies and campaigns that have made a significant impact in promoting diversity, equality, and inclusion. We'll be hearing from leaders who have spearheaded award-winning initiatives and have valuable experiences to share. So today, we will be discussing 2 standout campaigns. The first one's Inclusivity in ICT. From fiction to reality, the winner of the Best Diversity and Inclusion Campaign at the World Public Relations and Communications Awards 2023. The second one is Nivea, Your Shade of Beautiful, which was named a finalist for the same award category. Our speakers today are all distinguished professionals who have driven these campaigns to success. Let me introduce them to you. First, we have Jonna Peltola, the head of communications and brand of Tietoevry from Finland. Prior to joining Tietoevry, Jonna used to serve as the communications lead of Accenture. She also served as the head of the corporate communications department of Tito for over 4 years. In 2023, she led a group of brilliant minds to spearhead the Inclusivity in ICT, from fiction to reality campaign, which has since been recognized globally for its impact and innovation in promoting diversity within the ICT sector. Welcome to the show, Jonna. Joining Jonna is Paula Sonne, the Earned Creative Director, heading 11th part of TBWA Helsinki. Paula has been instrumental in creative execution of the Inclusivity in ICT campaign, ensuring its message resonates powerfully and authentically. Welcome to the webinar, Paula. Next, we also have Sylvester Chauke, the Chief Architect at DNA Brand Architects from South Africa. He is a disruptor in brand communication. He has worked in marketing at Nando's and Director of Marketing and Communication at MTV Networks Africa before starting his award-winning brand outfit DNA brand architects. He is a member of the Advisory Council of the World Economic Forum Global Shapers, a board member of the SA State Theater, and he serves on the Advisory Council for the University of Johannesburg. All right, we have a very, very good lineup of speakers. I'm so excited with all of them. So to start off, I would like to invite Jonna and Paula to share the journey and key elements that have made inclusivity in ICT from fiction to reality such a successful campaign. Jonna and Paula, the floor is now yours.
Thank you so much, Anna. And while I'm sharing the presentation, I would like to thank you, Global Alliance, for the opportunity to be here to share about the Tietoevry DEI journey and our communication journey. And of course, the journey is still going on as we speak. So we are very much learning as we go and have learned a lot during the past couple of years. And maybe for your context, I also want to say a couple of words about Tietoevry. So I'm myself based here in Finland, where we have the company headquarters, but we are indeed a global company. So we have colleagues across dozens of countries, and we have 24,000 colleagues overall. Our key markets are in the Nordics, but we do have thousands of colleagues in India, in other parts of the Europe, and also in the North America. And only in Finland, for example, we have around 40 nationalities, and in the company close to 80 altogether. So a bit of context and flavor to the fact what is Tietoevry and what is the company where we have now taken these initiatives. And this From Fiction to Reality campaign was addressing exactly the topic of gender diversity, but of course we are embracing in the company other aspects of diversity. But now to the topic and to the campaign itself. So when we initiated, the seed for this campaign was planted a couple of years ago, and the realities then, as they are also very much today, are centered around this dilemma. There is a talent shortage for sure in the technology industry, and then at the same time we see a very low percentage of female joining or being working in the technology industry. It's been reported that the numbers are between 20 to 30% typically female in the tech industry. And at the time of when we were looking at this campaign and our own initiatives, you could find numbers as low as below 20%. So this is the dilemma that we continue to have still today and had when we had these seeds planted for the campaign. And of course, at the same time, as we also see very much in the past few years, our audiences, our own people have been very much drawn to more and more increasingly purpose-driven and societal impact-driven organizations and brands. And there have been also around the time of this campaign being initiated some reports around this, like a testimony to that thinking. So, for example, Edelman Trust brand trust report has signaled that even 86%, so vast majority, is expecting really brands to take action and be standing for the good causes, such as diversity in the social societies where they operate. And for us, that's of course a super important engine for our thinking. And the fact that, you know, we will be hopefully coming back to also during our discussion, that it's not only a kind of a matter of PR or doing communication. It's also a matter of doing good business and a matter of being a good employer, that you address and you take the risk and you go a bit beyond what is the kind of maybe the traditional way of thinking and communicating. So that typically tends to then pay off over time. So these were the type of considerations and realities we were living in when we were thinking as a company that, okay, we are should be a forerunner in our industry. We are a market leader in the Nordics, but how can we then show that also in terms of embracing DEI and the gender diversity? So then in 2021, officially, we launched our 50-50 gender balance target, meaning that we were aiming and wanted to aim to have an equal split between the male and female in the working force by 2030. And we also at that time, of course, introduced a framework of the type of actions that we should as a company take so that we can achieve that goal and be credible. And that's, of course, part of I think in this topic as well, big part of actually the whole concept or idea is that you actually walk the talk. You can't just talk, but you also have to have actions that are testimony to your kind of communication, your messaging, your narrative. It cannot be only words. It has to be also actions. So we created a framework for our company, for our businesses to kind of operate systematically and consistently towards this target. And I also want to mention that as we felt that this was such a powerful kind of drive towards this target, 50-50 was back at the time very ambitious also for us, that I have to admit. It was super ambitious. We were at about 26% ourselves maybe at that point of time. So to climb to 50, of course, was super I would say high target, but we also purposefully wanted to have it like that, because then it creates enough of ambition, also a bit of a movement. And that's how we maybe also saw it in the organization as well. And we wanted to truly take action and concretely embrace the whole idea of achieving the gender balance and attracting more female candidates also to the kind of a recruitment pool, if you may say. And one concrete and I think quite interesting from the communication perspective initiative that we took was that we piloted recruitment with our recruitment advertisements. We changed the language. We used external advisory in this, that we changed some of the words. We changed to one would say that it was small changes, but they created a big impact. For example, the term competent was changed to knowledgeable, quality-driven mindset to quality-focused mindset. We more emphasized the opportunity to grow, the opportunity to have an impact. And with that, we achieved 32% more of female applicants that we had traditionally had for that type of roles. And we used here external advisory also to get the terminology right and get the tonality right. And this is maybe one of the learnings that I would also have working with the very, very wide spectrum of DEI topics, is that do turn to also external advisors, those who are more knowledgeable maybe about the terminology, about the tonality, because these are sometimes quite sensitive also areas and messages that you have to be dealing with. So you want to get it right so that you are also getting a good reception. So we did this equal terms, as we call it, initiative, very much bundled together with this campaign from fiction to reality, to really turn the fiction to reality in our own activities as well. And I'll now hand over to Paula, who will talk you through what was the fiction to reality creative concept and why we wanted to do it, because we wanted, of course, the world to see also our ambition and understand why we are driving the gender balance target 50-50. So over to you, Paula. I will probably change the slides.
Yes, thank you, Jonna. And let's dive a bit deeper into the concept and campaign itself. So as we back then started cracking the creative input and searching for the human insight to do this, what surprised us was seeing so many fictional women working within ICT when actually the numbers are lagging so far behind in reality. So a study published by Gina Davis Institute on gender in media found that over 40% of fictional characters within ICT jobs are women. But in reality, women make up just around 20%, as Jonna here mentioned. So the female ICT professionals are twice as common in fiction than they are in real life. And what we know for a fact is that to close the gender gap between reality and fiction, young women need to relate to role models that will encourage them to join the industry. And we also know that it takes consistent work from companies like Tietoevry to increase the number of women working in tech. So let's take a look at the next slide. What we also found when taking a look at fiction was that women are often portrayed as very stereotypical characters. And that can be off-putting for those who do not identify with them. So From Fiction to Reality campaign was made to address both these representation issues and to show some real-life examples of women in tech. And the campaign consisted of these 3 sets of ads and that combined references to these stereotypical female tech characters and then merged them into the real-life role models. Let's look at the next slide and see an example of the campaign film that was run in social. So the social videos were viewed over 300,000 times, which is a lot if we look at the Nordics. And they had an engagement rate of 6.3, which was very nice. All in all, the campaign was run extensively in paid, owned and earned channels in the Nordics, especially in Finland, in outdoor, social and PR. And if we look at the next slide, the campaign was kicked off at the same time as Suomi Areena, an annual public debate forum, took place. If we take a look at the metrics, the traffic to career site increased to be 10 times bigger during the campaign. And the tech students actually the ranking jumped from place 22 to 12. So a quite significant increase there. It also sparked some very nice speaking opportunities for Tietoevry. And if we look at the kind of all in all DEI campaigns, the reputational capital has increased 17% in the time frame these campaigns took place. And we see the number of female candidates is in the rise. The kind of combined reach has already exceeded 58 million, and the media coverage we have earned is approximately 1 article per day. Let's take the next slide. So with impactful marketing communications, we can really make a real-life impact to contribute to diversity, inclusion, and equity. For example, close the tech industry gender gap, as we here try to do. But there is even more we can do, and Jonna will kindly share what is yet to come.
Thank you, Paula. And indeed we saw during this campaign, and we also made some separate communications about that equal terms, the recruitment, that pilot. So we did receive quite a few media queries, and kind of earned media was kind of quite predominantly visible compared to our maybe standard state. So you could really see that you got the attention, and we reached the kind of type of attendance or awareness that we were looking for. These next couple of slides are not about the details. They are more like to demonstrate that this is indeed a journey that started there in 2020, 2021, when we went then live with this campaign, and we did these actions that were just talked through. At the end of 21, we saw the share of female candidates in recruitment, sharing by 4 percentage points, which was really a kind of a record number within 1 year. So we can also, and I want to at least conclude that this campaign and the movement that we created had an impact. Then in 2022, we of course continued and have continued systematically to drive this target. Of course, one can imagine that we also had to recalibrate things a bit because we did a very big organizational or structural update in the company at the beginning of the year. And then unfortunately in February 22, as we know, Russia attacked Ukraine, and we have 2,000 colleagues in Ukraine. So we had, of course, to kind of a bit refocus also our efforts and kind of our attention on other value-driven activities as well. But the focus has continued systematically, and we have partnered with SHE Conference in Norway, in the Nordic countries. We've continued our partnerships with the other relevant organizations, and then also initiated some new partnerships and collaborations to be able to kind of convey our ambition to the stakeholder groups across the Nordic countries mainly, but also in other operating countries. And as one concrete action, we actually created a brochure, one could call it, but it also has a digital format, being an IT girl brochure in 2022 as well. And then we have entered the year 23 and now 24, continuing systematically. Our businesses increasingly creating their own initiatives. Of course, there's a lot of collaboration between and with HR, of course, and the business stakeholders. So it's not only us communication and marketing doing the work. And then quite considerably last year, we started working on our new sustainability long-term strategy or plan. We call it Sustainability Pledge. And as part of that, we have also revisited our gender balance target. And we have actually now this spring updated it to 49-49, which is simply for the fact that we want to truly make a space for inclusion. We recognized already a bit earlier than this spring that maybe this 50-50 being quite traditional doesn't cater for the today's and tomorrow's world, and we really want to make sure that we create space also for those colleagues whose gender identity does not fit the traditional binary system. So now from 50-50, we have moved to 49-49. And this is, of course, again, we work a bit with Paula and the team to now this year then move forward with this ambition and make sure that this is also kind of recognized and noticed, and we could get, of course, the positive message and maybe collaboration from other companies joining this thinking. And for example, at the moment, very recently, we have now added to our recruitment ads a disclaimer, or rather a promotional text that makes sure that we carry this message about us being very, very open to DEI, also incrementally as part of these advertisements. So a new candidate or anyone wanting to join Tietoevry would instantly get the feel of what we stand for in the area of DEI. So this is it, I think, from myself and Paula and the Tietoevry DEI journey. As I said, it's definitely continuing, and I look forward to also hearing from Sylvester and their case.
All right. Thank you so much, Jonna and Paula. You know what? It's really good that a certain campaign has continuity, so you could sustain it and you could reach the goal. So that's very, very, evident in what you're doing for this campaign. That's why it has gained that reputation. So thank you so much for that. I know that a lot of our participants would like to ask questions right away to both Jonna and Paula, but we still have a very good campaign to be discussed, and award-winning campaign to be discussed here from Africa. And I'm really, really excited to hear from him. So I'd like to introduce our next speaker. Let's hear from Sylvester Chauke about the Nivea Your Shade of Beautiful campaign. So I'm excited to hear about this. Take it away, Sylvester.
Thank you very much. And everybody can see my slide, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Lovely. So this campaign was really special on so many levels. There was a clear alignment of client objectives needed to be met, agency, creativity, and of course, the consumer who we're going to get. So you could say that there was a clear win-win-win across the board for the customer, for the client, and for the agency. So I will start off with a video to give you a sense about the campaign before we continue.
For the longest time, beauty has had a look, a face, and shade. We have been taught to see beauty everywhere else but ourselves and not celebrate the art we are in our various skin tones.
Colorism has been the subject of emotive debate.
What do you say to people who then reduce it to having an issue with being a darker African person?
Across the world, melanin-rich skin has been largely overlooked in the beauty industry.
You aren't actually beautiful, you're just light. Why do you associate beauty with being lighter?
What's wrong with the picture? Nivea wanted to positively impact this conversation and honor its consumers with the launch of an all-new Radiant and Beauty range specifically to meet the unique needs of melanin-rich skins. Why? Because our skin is living art. We deserve to celebrate it. Introducing For Your Shade of Beautiful. In partnership with women of various skin shades, we ignited meaningful conversations on skin health and beauty. We curated the ultimate celebration for melanin-rich skin and powerfully engaged media and our communities with a campaign that connected women of all shades and celebrated them for the art that they are.
How do you shift a negative gaze of your skin into a positive one? Your skin is beautiful. Your skin is amazing. Your skin is like glorious. You want to be seen by the world. You want to be validated by the world. But the only person that can validate you is you.
Even Beyonce's mom couldn't get enough. A reminder that we may have different religions, different languages, different colored skins, but we all belong to one human race, and we all belong.
Mr. Nasty, I clean it up.
Fantastic. So that gives you a sense of the whole campaign as a whole. And I'll just give a bit of context and then I'll get into the actual nitty-gritty of the total campaign. So we'll start off with some context, just a little bit about South Africa. We in South Africa have about 60 million South Africans in terms of the population size. We have the predominant 80% of our audience being Black, and then of course 3%, 9% are colored, white are 8%. So you can see that from the audience perspective, we know we have a predominant Black audience. Over and above that, we have 11 official languages in South Africa, which obviously talks to a lot of this diversity, and we are referred to as the Rainbow Nation, which underscores the diversity of our nation. So that context in mind, it's quite clear and obvious that if you are talking to audiences in South Africa, you are talking to a very diverse audience, not only in languages, in culture, in skin shade, etc. So Nivea, they needed to make sure that they navigate and manage this diversity within the region in the way that they communicate this to the audiences. The brief was very, very clear. How does Nivea, as a leading global skincare brand, show up in a manner that honors our South African consumers' diversity, especially because South Africa is a very diverse country? So we had a clear communication opportunity here to showcase to South African women in particular that Nivea is a brand that is committed to addressing the needs of melanated skin types or diverse skin types that are happening in the actual country. And we know that when we talk about skin color, especially in Africa and in South Africa in particular, skin color politics can be emotionally charged. And consequently, our research then needed to tread very carefully to ensure that we frame our analysis with the respect and sensitivity that it deserves. Because when you speak about skin color, it can really create a lot of negative sentiment in parts of the continent, and especially in South Africa as well. So our research observation then gave us some clear outputs, and there were 4 key of them. One was the fact that skincare brands don't embrace and celebrate darker shades of skin. If you look at magazines like Vogue or Glamour magazine, etc., you can see that darker skin shades are not necessarily taking center stage, and particularly on the continent. 2, more women are leaning towards products with greater efficacy and formulated specifically for their skin types. And as you can imagine, in South Africa, with the diverse skin tones, it was important to say that we as Nivea have got the ability to be able to manage different skin tones. 3 is about really ensuring that trial of beauty products is encouraged mainly by peer-to-peer. So it was important that this message or this communication was engaging people at a personal one-on-one level. And lastly, that consumers wish that skincare brands like Nivea do not talk at them, but rather they talk and engage with them. So that idea of conversation was something that was quite important. So through that research, the insights then were revealed. And there were clear insights that said, there is a close correlation between positive narratives about unique skin tones and newly acceptable forms of beauty. So we're challenging, what does beauty mean? And does beauty mean light skin only? Or does beauty reflect the diversity that we're seeing in the world? The second thing was around the perceptions around beauty are closely linked to childhood traumas and embedded childhood experiences, because people with darker skin tones are generally made fun of, in fact, because there's an idea that lighter skin tones are better for people generally in the world. And lastly, that seeing more melanin skin reflected in beauty campaigns in our country would be appreciated. So these insights were taken and we aligned with Nivea to then say, how do we ensure that our campaign drives and answers back to these insights? The objectives for the campaigns were very clear. We needed to make sure that from the onset, we were clear about the 3 things we wanted to do: showcase diversity in the people we're partnering with, driving conversation around media, and making sure that we reach, in our objective, we wanted to reach 15 million South African women and have this conversation with them. And then, of course, engage 150 media outlets and celebrities and influencers to come together to have a conversation around color, colorism, but also around different shades of beauty. And of course, our audience was very clear. We wanted to ensure that Black women between the ages of 25 to 45 were at the core center of our audience, but it's women with darker skin tones generally, and women who are go-getters, who are practical, who are vocal. Because we also understood that globally, Black skin almost carries a narrative with a long and painful history. And that's why in the beauty industry, melanated skin is largely overlooked. So we wanted to really drive that conversation and ensure that our publics are engaging with that. Our message was very, very clear. How do we make sure that Nivea, as a range, caters for beautiful melanated skin as it is? It was important to say that we wanted to showcase that as Nivea, we understand the different diversity that we have in terms of our audience, and we've got product that meets all the different types of skin that are within the region. And so through that, we were clear in terms of our communication strategy to focus on traditional media channels, print, outdoor, online. We had great social media channels, and then of course ensure that our message vehicles were very clear around how we use traditional media to communicate, how we use digital media to support that, and how do we use all the in-store material and of course the event and the media engagements that we did to ensure that that message was driven to align to the core message of diversity of skin tone and diversity of product. And then, of course, in terms of execution, it was quite clear. We did a great influencer partnership and skin appreciation campaign shoot that wanted to showcase this diversity of skin and ensuring that we showcase it physically in terms of the actual hero products or hero shoots that we were doing. Then we had a media and influencer drops that were sent across the entire nation in all media platforms with massive amounts of influencers to ensure that engages with the right individuals, editors of magazines, radio talk show hosts, influencers, and people in general who had lots of things to say about diversity and inclusion. And then we had a launch event, a media launch event, which we engaged to make sure that we have this conversation, roundtable conversations, and ensure that that's driven also from a digital perspective. Over and above that, we also looked at media, of course, in terms of our media relations, ensuring that we align with the media junket, media one-on-ones, editors' conversations, particularly women-led publications that are core to the audience and are core to the platforms that we wanted to engage on. Then, of course, social media engagement was quite clear across TikTok, X, YouTube, etc. And then we had a magazine collaboration with Glamour magazine in partnership with GQ as well to ensure that we're amplifying that message within the country in as much of a beautiful way as possible to showcase this diversity that we're talking about. Then, of course, we needed to kind of get in and look at how do we measure this to make sure that it works, because it was important to kind of outline that this campaign was important in ensuring that Nivea expands its reach to speak to the audience in the way that engages them, but also brings them into the brand as much as possible. So we collaborated with personalities and influencers who represented different skin types and different audiences within the country, and ensuring that is amplified. We had an amazing conversation driver. In terms of reaching 15 million audiences, but we were across all the different conversations that were important in media, on radio, and press. All the conversations that we're having, talk show hosts, we're talking about this campaign, talking about the conversation around diversity and inclusion in beauty, but also how do we start engaging people as they are with the skin tones that they are already with. And then we had an amazing 150 media and celebrities and influencer conversation. And of course, making sure that from that, we get over 19 pieces of video content, 102 powerful images that were created from this that became the campaign hero images that went out, but ensuring that ultimately this conversation ends at the event, but it's also amplified across all key things. Now, I was given 15 minutes to talk to this, and I will close by now just saying that it's so important that when we engage with our audiences, we understand some of the underlying issues around diversity and inclusion. And brands, whatever brands are, particularly FMCG brands that touches consumers on a day-to-day basis, can make a huge impact in driving a message of inclusion in areas which are highly overlooked. And this is really the core part of this, is to say our ability as PR professionals to use our platforms, to use our campaigns, to drive a message of diversity and inclusion is a very, very important thing that we need to continue to do as we drive a world that is more inclusive and that is free for everybody to express as they are. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sylvester. I feel you. It was a very passionate presentation. Thank you. It's also very insightful. So I bet all our audiences right now are very excited to throw in their questions to each one of you. So we will open the floor for a Q&A session. And if you have questions for our speakers, for those who are participants today, please type them into the chat box so I can read them for you. We will try to get through as many as possible. And also to announce that for those of you who would want to have a copy of their presentations and would want to view it over and over so you really get the gist of what they're saying and learn from them, it is going to be available. So we'll give you the link for that immediately after the presentation of our speakers. I think we still have a session for DEI. So after everything is over, please expect that these materials will be available in the GA website. All right. So let's stop the ball rolling when it comes to the questions, the important questions that our audience would like to ask. I have here the first question. This is for everyone. how can organizations effectively align diversity, equality, and inclusion in their corporate strategies? When Sylvester ended that, we must, do and include DEI in all our programs. It is worth taking, it is worth doing. So each of you, how can the organizations, do you think, effectively align DEI in their strategies?
That's, I think, that's a super big question, and probably no kind of simple, small nugget answers to be able to give. But I think also kind of the collaboration that comes through, also how you, Sylvester, put it in your presentation, that you engage with your stakeholders internally, but also like externally, and the dialogue is there. I mean, it's like I at least have learned so much, and I continue to learn about the different aspects of DEI all the time. We have to be quite humble, but at the same time hungry to make a difference. So that's a bit of a balancing act. But I think here at least I feel that the collaboration with, for example, now internal collaboration with HR, and then of course you need the support of the management, the top management. So like initiative like ours, it's in our strategy. This gender balance target is in our strategy, the 49-49 that we are now embracing. It's officially there. So of course you need to make it in a way official, and so that you can also have the resources, and you can have the commitment from the different stakeholders to continue the work. But also the validation, I think, and what I mentioned during the presentation a bit, or try to kind of bring forth, is that as you, Sylvester, also so smartly put it, that there's a lot of sensitivity that goes to, different areas of DEI, and kind of, trying to learn and understand, so that you get your messages and your terminology and tonality right, because you can get easily also misinterpreted when you're communicating around these topics. And that's why I think it's so valuable that we also share in these peer communities the experiences and the kind of the best practices, and also the learnings, and that maybe some of the kind of the pain points that we've had. So it's like, I think, being just open to the dialogue and engagement, and then of course the type of proof points that we see, that these also make business sense. So of course business people tend to understand business language, and they understand when money speaks as well. So kind of it's also kind of sounds maybe a little harsh, but that's also the reality that we see, that DEI, it does make business sense. It's also a super good business strategy. It's not just a separate strategy of its own, but it does make sense to kind of embrace it and try to advocate it. But here I leave it to others as well to kind of provide their views.
I think it's both about the strategies we make, so the very brave initiatives and the ambitious company policies, but then it's also about taking the strategies into action, right? And there we can truly contribute in communications. So it's in the wordings we use, it's in inclusive design, it's in representation, the visuals, it's in the supporting technology, and those together kind of make the inclusive working culture and the diverse workforce as well.
Yeah, that's
I would say that I think that yes, I would agree completely with Paula and Jonna, because I think at the core of it, when you think of diversity and inclusion, it always sounds completely complex and really difficult to get into. So businesses generally always feel like, where do we even begin? And I'd say you begin from, you need to just start, because there is a business case for it. Because imagine if you are including people, it means that you have more of an extensive market to talk to, right? If you are including people, it means that your compliance and risk management issues, for example, no one wants to work in discriminatory environments, right? So we can definitely be able to help in that compliance and risk management, sure that anti-discrimination of laws and regulations and reducing risk at work becomes a central part of that diversity and inclusion. So it's really about protecting people's rights, protecting people's rights to be, and protecting individuals, and both from a business perspective with the companies that you work for, but it's also important from the customers that you are trying to engage. Because I can say in experience that by having diversity and inclusion at the forefront of your business, it means that you attract and retain better talent. And I think Paula has shown it creatively that, by expanding that, that pool, you can get better talent work for you. You get better decision making. You improve employee performance, employee engagement. So there are many, many reasons why D&I is important. And I want to just say, even though it may sound complex, the important thing is just start.
Great, great. That's the sure. I'm about to ask the second question, which is actually you've elaborated on the answers already, because the second question was, what are the potential benefits for organizations that fully embrace diversity, equality, and inclusion? So all three of you have, specified that basically it's commercially viable, it's good for the business, it's something that our audience, our target would embrace. So everything is good with DEI, right? So the third question is what key issues must be addressed to ensure that diversity, equality, and inclusion are adequately integrated in today's societal fabric?
I think probably parts of the answers, if not all of the answers that we kind of gave before, are valid also to this, but I think it's also the what Sylvester, I'm referring to you all the time, but that's that's a bit of the idea, right? We are discussing here. So kind of getting started, and you always need the forerunners, and you always need a bit of a movement, and you always need, so it can happen on a micro level. So in our case, for example, we needed a bit of that movement, the push that we did with this campaign, like we got, it got us going, and then we were kind of strong enough to continue. Even we've seen some hurdles, of course, along the way. It's not the perfect all the time, so that it's like, so you need a bit of that, and you need to have supporters, allies also to what you're doing. So I think it's just believing also in kind of the things that you do, and get them grounded enough so that you don't stop doing if you face a small setback. So you kind of keep going, what you're, be clear about the ambitions and the targets. And I think I don't know, of course, it can be varying at the different parts of the world, but I think it's a bit of a global situation at the moment, where there's quite a lot of uncertainty. Young people feel uncertain about their future. There are climate worries. There are all sorts of worries. So I can't myself. I have two kids. I call them kids, but they are 21 and 18 already. So it's really close to my heart, the thinking about the future of the young people. Of course, my own future as well, and all generations. But it's somehow I find it so hard to think that anything else but DEI would make sense. Just we need that to practically survive, I guess, in all areas of life, and all areas of business. So it's got a bit of emotional and taken away by this, but over to you, Paula or Sylvester.
Yeah, I perfectly agree with you, Jonna, on that. Yeah, Sylvester?
I would say for me, there are two areas that are critical. The one is ensuring that there's leadership commitment and training in the businesses, because if top leadership isn't committed in it's going to be very difficult for it to be enforced in the business. So providing that sense of commitment is critical as number one. Number two, it's about having the idea to do D&I as a key driver is commendable, it's exciting, but it doesn't mean anything if there aren't any D&I policies and practices embedded in the business. So I'd say ensuring that there are policies in businesses that talk to anti-discrimination and equal opportunity guidelines, because it's important that it's not a campaign, it's the way that we show up as a business. We show up with the idea of inclusion at the core of our fabric. So I'd say the leadership must be committed to it, but it means nothing if it isn't in policies and in practices in our businesses. And then it'll be in practices in terms of our brands.
Very well said, Sylvester. How about you, Paula?
Yeah, I completely agree with the two previous ones, but maybe just to add that even the well-meaning people might sometimes have some unconscious biases, and that's just what us humans kind of do. And this won't get any easier as we utilize AI more and more and so forth. So we need to kind of be very aware of our thinking. And I think this gets better and better as we learn and share. So the better we can notice our thinking and steer. And this I think happens through the partnerships, the trainings that Sylvester mentioned, and the awareness raising that we're all doing here, and also the policy changes. So a lot of measures we can take.
And I think we can, of course, as communication professionals, marketeers in our organizations, be a bit of the torch carriers and kind of, actively reminding that, this is, as you, Paula, said, it's only human that we all have some unconscious bias, and it's only human that the top management tends to be a bit busy with the kind of the actual business so that we kind of help them also drive space and room in their agendas for these topics and be vocal and help them communicate and help them a bit to be like on top of the kind of, the narrative as well, and kind of bake that into because it's kind of it's not that it doesn't come as natural, even if the heart would be there, but it doesn't necessarily come as natural to everybody to speak. So we have to help, of course, and that requires a bit, of course, that's, I think, very motivating as well, but it requires a bit of effort as well to kind of support the different kind of spokespeople, as we call them, also to remember to keep the narrative up and
Very true, very true. So I have here two questions from our participants, and I think we have each of you could answer those questions particularly. And as we end our discussion, I would like to get the opinion of the three speakers. They're very important, the very important takeaway for our participants for today in really, ensuring that there is really the continuity in pushing for diversity, equality, and inclusion for the industry in particular. So there's a question for Sylvester here. In some of the materials that you presented, we saw women of diverse skin tones, as well as shapes and sizes. Since your campaign was titled Nivea, Your Shade of Beautiful, did it ever occur that the team might also need to answer issues about beauty in terms of body shapes and not just shades? If this happened, how would you have tweaked your campaign to address the scenario?
Yes, that's a great question. And in fact, when we talked about the campaign line, which is My Shade of Beautiful, that was the first base narrative that we wanted to go to, but it had multiple layers of it. It's about your shade, but absolutely it was also about your background, your culture, your language, your shape, your preferences. So the campaign line was just the base foundation for one thing that we used as a key conversation, but all the other elements were key. So all the roundtables, we're talking about that exactly, like body shaming, but also, not only in terms of skin, but it's also in terms of size and shape, particularly on the continent. We see that as a key thing, and that was one of the four key elements of the conversation around shade. So shade was not the only thing we were going against. As you'll see also in the materials, the actual influences we used, the images that we used as the core on the outdoor, etc. They were all different shapes as well. So it wasn't just all sort of thin, beautiful models with different shades, but they were all different people. Height as well was a big, impactor on that. Also skin issues and skin conditions. So we had different people who also had skin conditions that, that was quite key as well to let go. So yeah, there was no need to tweak at this point because it addressed all those key issues as it went. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Sylvester. There's another question for Jonna and Paula. Could you please elaborate further on the journey and key elements that contributed to the success of the Inclusivity in ICT from fiction to reality campaign? And since you said it's still an ongoing campaign, what would you have wanted to achieve for your campaign?
I think apologies if I kind of worded myself unclearly. The campaign as such is no longer running, but of course the kind of the idea, the movement that it set in motion is very much there, and I think we really needed that. I think the movement in 21 that we experienced was something that, you know, as came through in some of the results. So it was really, I think we really needed that confidence to kind of move forward and you know, also kind of validate to some of our internal stakeholders as well that we are right here with what we are driving. So that was really important. I think that also showed how like the external, even though that's never in this type of a work, that shouldn't be the goal to win prizes with PR campaigns, but that at least at their best they can go very well together and be a proof point and help also drive things forward. So I think that's what I think from the campaign, I don't know if I could have expected to get anything more really. It's maybe now that we are now looking at how to continue, we notice, of course, that the world also has changed here in between, and that's maybe the iteration and, like, you know, being very also sensitive to topics, because we operate, of course, mainly in the Nordic countries, and already when we explore sometimes, like, would this work, this campaign in some other countries, we are like, no. So that's maybe something that we now increasingly, as our company has become also a bit more global over time, we need to just, you know, think through together with the partners and internally as well, that how do we create campaigns that also are viable, that can be utilized more broadly, and how do we kind of make them live and have maybe a bit more life cycle as well going forward.
Yeah, thank you,
Paula,
for
you would like to add there, because you were, of course,
I think it was a brilliant answer. Maybe my 3 points to the contributing to the success would be that we need to be courageous and disruptive to kind of stand out from the other communications. We live in a very busy world with a lot of messages. Then we need a good human insight, and here I think we did nail it to be relevant for the audiences. And the third thing would definitely be that we are tapping into an ongoing discussion, something that's already seen as a problem, and offering kind of a solution for that. So that's my three points.
Yeah. That's right. Now I have 2 more questions here. I don't want to disappoint our participants because I think it's very important question for them. This one is for Sylvester. What inspired the Nivea Your Shade of Beautiful campaign, and how did you navigate potential challenges in promoting a more inclusive definition of beauty?
What really inspired the campaign was quite clear from the onset. When we look at news and look at what's happening on social media, there's general conversation around skin colorism, and skin color being a political issue that people fight about all the time. So if you are lighter shade, you are seen to be better off. And if you're a darker shade, you were ostracized and laughed at. So we saw that as a big conversation, and that we needed to address, 1. But 2, it was important that a brand like Nivea can't be in that space and not participate in that conversation, or help to be able to amplify that message and help to educate consumers about that as well. So we saw that as a great opportunity. We knew we were going to get a challenge because, yes, colorism is political. There's a lot of cultural issues. There's a lot of, personal opinions. So we knew that what we needed to do was make sure that on that panel of conversations, or in the key messages that we're putting out, they were diverse enough to ensure that people can be engaged, depending on where they stand. So it wasn't one-sided in terms of the lighter shades or the darker shades or the tall or the beautiful or the small or the big. It was important to make sure that every element or every part of the conversation can have an audience that can engage with it. That really drove that. So we knew we were going to have a bit of a debate, but that is the debate that we wanted to have. That's the conversation that we needed to be had, because why should we live in a country that is diverse as South Africa, that calls itself the Rainbow Nation, and yet we still have issues about who's lighter, who's darker? So we needed to reflect and make sure that we can do better as a nation. And I think this campaign did that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sylvester. That's so on point. Now, there's a question for Paula. In your campaign, how were you able to ensure that the message of inclusivity resonated authentically with your target audience? Also, what specific strategies did you employ to ensure that the campaign's message was well received across the diverse cultural contexts?
That's a very nice question and could be answered for hours, but since we're already just quickly, I think what was the kind of hook and the showstopper was that we borrowed the visual world from the pop culture and mixed it up with the corporate culture, which is kind of a very nice friction. And that was something that probably stopped the reader or the audience that was watching our message. Let's make fiction into reality, I think, was a very strong statement from Tietoevry and reflected their values. They really want to see this happening in real life.
That's right.
And the kind of strategies that we used, this was a full-on 360 campaign. So we did everything we could to earn the media feel, and then also made the effort to kind of see that the own channels are in best use, and then put some money behind the paid advertising. I think this was kind of the strategy in a nutshell.
And if I may add to that, is of course quite important, or very important, that then the kind of the employees of the organization itself don't feel alienated from what they see externally, so that we had done the kind of the homework also before the campaign, sharing awareness about the new targets and why it's important. And that's like, then we also got some own ambassadors from the organization and the understanding behind the campaign.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. Those are all very insightful words from all three of you. Big words like commitment, leadership, policies that should be embedded in the business, humble and hungry to make a difference, taking strategy into action in pursuing DEI. So my last question for you is, what could be the best takeaway that the participants of this seminar would get from the three of you, considering that you have struggled and really tried hard to make this happen for the respective organizations that you belong. And this would involve a bigger, scope, and extended to everyone, not only in your respective regions, in your respective places, but throughout the world. So what could be the best takeaway that you could share with our audience with regards to taking in the diversity, equality, and inclusion thing for the communications? All right,
well,
let's
I'll start by just yes, I was about to say that we are in a powerful industry that is able to take messages and get millions of people to shift their ideas. So when we think about diversity and inclusion, and by integrating it into your business, it's a strategic advantage, because it's not only going to be able to help you in being able to create an environment where everyone feels valued and respected, but it also will be able to drive innovation and performance in business, because the world currently does not want brands who do not take a stand around issues of inclusion and driving a better world. Brands cannot continue to stand in the middle and not participate in helping to shape a culture and a world that is inclusive, that is a world that everybody can be able to live in with comfort across the board. So if you do not participate in diversity and inclusion, you are choosing not to participate in a world that is inclusive and is diverse. And that is going to be a challenge for you.
Thank you, Sylvester. Let's hear from Jonna.
Yes. So I think completely on the same page with Sylvester there, and I think it's like about don't give up on kind of following what is kind of relevant. I think being part of the ever evolving the world is going to be so important, and then kind of the tapping into the values that we also kind of quite often refer to the next generation, the younger generation, but it's for a reason, of course, because that's the mirror of the future, and we have to be kind of a representative and kind of represent the societies that we live in, and be providing also hope for the future in many ways. And I think to be a testimony of that, we need to be actively and proactively driving the DEI narrative, but also the DEI change. So that speaks for also kind of, the policies and getting it rooted, and trying to at least get started if you haven't yet started, but try to find the people and the kind of, the peers with whom you can maybe take things forward. So I absolutely also want to, on my behalf, say that, if anyone wants to connect after this session, I'm more than happy to do that, because, we are still on this journey ourselves as well. So happy to hear them from you as well.
Thank you, Jonna. Now let's hear from Paula.
I'd be happy to connect as well. And I think my key takeaway would be that let's look for the information, let's learn and share what we know, and let's be very courageous, because things really won't change otherwise.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Paula. Thank you for all our participants who throw in their insightful questions. Really, they are all top ones, but yeah, very relevant. It's been a privilege to learn from these exemplary leaders and their groundbreaking campaigns. We hope you found today's session as enlightening and as inspiring as we did. Thank you. On behalf of Global Alliance, I'd like to express our sincerest appreciation for our guests today. Thank you for joining us here in today's session, Jonna, Paula, and Sylvester. Thank you for sharing your time and expertise with us today. Thank you also for everyone who joined us for this webinar. Let's continue to work together towards creating more inclusive and equitable environments in all aspects of our lives. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.